Hey, Thomas from Field Tennis. Today I want to talk to you about the non-dominant eye. This topic has come up quite a lot lately, especially since Mr. Patrick Mouratoglou posted a video about the non-dominant eye and his views about it. I'm going to give you a card above and link in the description if you want to look at that. So what he's recommending are different stances, different positions in order for your non-dominant eye not to trouble you. Because he works with high-level competitive juniors and higher-level performance players, then I think it is possible, so I don't know that, but it's possible to train a player to get into different stances over time completely subconsciously based on their eye dominance. But since most of the viewers on YouTube are adult recreational tennis players, I don't think that's applicable because they are not so skilled in different stances, and secondly they don't train this specifically, so it's not very practical for them to try and use a different stance based on their eye dominance. So maybe just a quick word on what does it mean if one eye is non-dominant. That doesn't mean that you don't see well on it. You can have 20/20 vision on both eyes, but what it means is that the signal travels through the optical nerve a little bit slower by a few milliseconds, like 15 to 20 milliseconds slower. And in normal life that doesn't matter because things don't move so quickly, but when it comes to sports it matters, especially in a sport like tennis where the ball moves very quickly and we have to judge it very, very accurately. So you might think that 20 milliseconds even in tennis is not really something that you should worry about, but let me show you something here with the forehand that I'm hitting. So this is recorded with 240 frames per second, so I can go very granular, in very small increments. I can move the ball. So I'm going to put the line here on the ball at this moment, and I'm going to put the timer. So 20 milliseconds is 200ths of a second. So if we go here, we can now see milliseconds. So 20 milliseconds and the ball moved this much. So just to give you kind of like a simple visual idea, this is my foot, right? So my foot is just a little bit bigger than this distance that the ball traveled in 20 milliseconds, right? Now if we come to the contact point and I make a line here on the ball that I hit the ball at contact, and I roughly make the same distance before and after, you can see that roughly estimating this is my contact zone, right? This is my contact zone. I cannot really hit the ball later than this. I will be hitting the ball late, and if I were to hit the ball this much in front, I would start to lean forward and I would lose balance. So my point is that my hitting zone is maybe about 50 milliseconds. So you have very little margin of error in terms of time, and 20 milliseconds is just a little distance here or here where you could be hitting the ball too late or too much in front. And keep in mind that this is very nice ball. This my assistant Kaya was just feeding me from the basket a very nice slow ball, so I can demonstrate the topic that I was explaining last time in the topspin struggles video. And so this is a very nice ball. It's not even the ball that I would actually receive from a good recreational player hitting from the baseline. So 20 milliseconds is a lot in tennis, even at recreational level. And that is why it's important that we see the ball really clearly and that we perceive the ball really clearly, because if we do not, you're going to hit the ball too late. So what I want to share with you today are two practical tips that you can do without changing your footwork, just to understand how to make the best of your non-dominant eye so that it doesn't bother you too much. So in my case, I will explain first on my case. I'm a typical right-hander. I'm a right-hander and I have a right dominant eye. That's majority of right-handers. So I see the ball better on the forehand side and I see it worse on the backhand side. And the reason is that when I'm preparing for the backhand, my head turns a little bit because of body rotation. It turns a little bit too much to the side, and when my head turns a little bit too much to the side, then my left eye, which is non-dominant, kind of becomes the dominant lens through which I'm looking at the ball, and this right eye is just helping a little bit. So I found an example of where I happen to hit one forehand and one backhand, and I want to show you what can be the problem. So this is me just rallying with my buddy or one summer. I make a lot of footage from my videos because I use them in all sorts of things, so I just keep recording myself all the time, from front, from back view, and so on. So here's the forehand again, and here's the backhand, and if you watch, you can see that the ball kind of jumps a bit on me. If I go like this, you can see that it kind of pushes me back suddenly, and this is a typical backhand where I'm hitting a bit late. The ball somehow surprises me a little bit, right? So I just happen to find one forehand and one backhand when this happens. And now I would like to show you why that happens and how is my head position different when I'm preparing for the forehand and when I'm preparing for the backhand. So now I've synced these two strokes, one forehand and one backhand. I'm hitting at the same time. The ball is obviously at different heights, but it's coming at me at roughly the same speed. If I go a little bit further back, you can see here that it's just entering the screen, the point of view. So it's coming here and then bouncing basically same time. So same speed of the ball. And now if you observe, so if we go from the start and you observe my head position when I'm preparing, you can see that at this moment, I zoom in, you can see that here my head is much more forward than here I'm already tilted to the side, right? So that is what tends to happen. Different players, different positions. So for some players, their head is going to turn more when they're preparing the forehand, and for some players, their head is going to turn more when they prepare for the backhand. But the goal is that your head doesn't turn, because when I'm turning my head like this, on this side, I am losing a little bit very good 3D depth perception. Again, keep in mind the ball is still very far, right, when we're doing this. So when I'm preparing like this, the ball is still very far and there is no need to tilt the head. You can see here, where is the ball, right? So the ball is just crossing the net, so that means it's still like 10 meters or 12 meters away from me. And the angle from me to the ball, right, there's no side angle yet, right? The ball is in front of me. You can see I don't have to move, right? So the ball is really in front of me and I'm looking forward. So on the forehand side, I am looking forward because the ball is in front of me and I just happen to do it correctly. But on the backhand side, you can see that I'm starting to tilt my head to the side, or turn to the side. I'm not tilting really, but I'm turning to the side. And that is one reason why sometimes I'm late on the ball, and that is, I want to show you that this is one very practical thing that you should try and correct. So the most practical thing you can do in case of your eye dominance, so it doesn't matter left or right, is that you pay attention to keeping your head really straight as the ball is approaching, so on both sides, forehand and backhand. What I recommend that you do is, right now I'm just going to simulate here with the camera, go home in front of the mirror, look at yourself in the mirror or use an iPad or something on the stand and simulate turns to the side on both forehand and backhand side, and observe how much your head turns to the side like this automatically, right? So if your head turns like this to the side, you will not judge the ball well when the ball is still there. So I am like this when I prepare for the forehand. My head is like this, so my head is almost completely straight. It turns just by a couple of degrees, and on the backhand for me naturally is to turn my head like this, so it turns much more. So if I don't pay attention when I prepare the backhand, my head turns like this and I do not judge the ball so well. So what I had to practice is to turn my head, turn my shoulders and keep my head really straight, so that I'm really watching the ball as it's approaching with both eyes, like equally well. I don't want any turn of the head, because as soon as I turn my head a little bit like this, my non-dominant eye becomes the dominant one judging the ball, and then I have a little problem here and there. So the second situation where your non-dominant eye can trouble you is when you're looking at the ball, or at least doing your best, the best you can when you're about to hit it. And the problem is that you don't bring the ball into focus, because Mr. Mouratoglou is again talking about head position and so on, how players with different eye dominance position their head differently for contact, and you can train players to do that. So yes, you can train juniors to do that if you train them for a few years and you keep reminding that, then maybe you can automate that, or very likely. But if you're an adult recreational tennis player playing tennis 2 or 3 times per week, I don't think it's very likely that you can reprogram your head position through conscious thinking without, enough practice. So I have a more practical tip for you. I believe your head is going to align naturally correctly, regardless of your eye dominance, if you want to see the ball in focus. So the problem is that players, when the ball bounces and it's approaching them, they don't know that they should try and get the ball into focus. So they're looking at the ball, but the ball is like a blur. It's a blur, and they hit it, and because the racket face is relatively big and modern rackets are relatively forgiving, you can mishit the ball quite a lot off the sweet spot and still hit a decent ball, and you're not realizing that you're not hitting the sweet spot where you have maximum power and the best control. And so what you need to learn to do is to try and get the ball into focus. And when you try and get the ball into focus after the bounce, then your head, your eyes, your brain are gonna find the right position based on your eye dominance so that you see the ball well. So what I mean by eye focus, I'll see if this works, because the modern cameras are pretty well, so I don't know if it's gonna, any part of this ball flight is gonna be in blur. So if I bounce the ball like this, then normally, like with a normal human eye, not on the camera, down there when the ball is changing direction, you wouldn't see it in focus. It's changing direction too fast, too abruptly, and so you see a blur, and then the ball comes into focus. So from my point of view, when I'm looking at the ball, so that's why I position a bit like this. So when I look at the ball, as it's bouncing, it's a little bit blurry, and then the ball comes into my field of vision, and I can focus on it if I want, right? If I kind of look at it in a very lazy way, then I just see the ball, nothing special, but it's not very sharp, not focused, like a camera. But if I pay attention and I really want to see the ball in focus, meaning I want to see the lettering, I want to see the seams, I want to see the fuzz on the ball, and if I want to see that, then if I want to see that, I can see it. So I have more attention on the ball, and I bring the ball into focus. And so this is what I want to show you in this example. What does it mean to bring the ball into focus? And so when you play tennis, you should try and bring the ball into focus as it's coming out of the bounce. And if you do that, if you pay attention to that, then your head will naturally align over time in such a way that your non-dominant eye will not trouble you. So you will not position the non-dominant eye in such a way that it's going to be the main processing eye of the ball, since it has a worse processing or worse transferring of the data into the brain, but you're going to more favor the dominant eye.
So to conclude this video, I want to remind you of a video I published not long ago where I show 15 different drills on how to practice watching the ball. Some of these drills are specifically designed to help you practice focusing better on the ball and seeing it clearly not only after the bounce, but also as it's leaving opponent's racket. That helps you judge the ball much better, prepare your stroke earlier, and get into the right distance from the ball much better. I also created a PDF optimized for smartphones that you can download using the link in the description, so that you can have those drills always with you and can add some variation to your practice so that you always push your eyes and brain to adapt to new challenges. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. But in the meantime, jump over to the ball watching drills video if you haven't seen it yet, as the ability to see the ball well in tennis is the key to playing well.